evening, everyone, and welcome to the virtual Perez Art Museum Miami. My name is Marie Vickles, and I'm the Director of Education. Tonight, we are presenting the online version of our Local Views at PAMM program, featuring artist Terence Price II. This live virtual Local Views program is presented with the generous support of the John S. and James L. Knight Foundation and features Miami-based artists sharing their practice and discussing works of art on view at the museum that connect in various ways to their own work. This program aims to provide a first-hand interaction with local artists centered on their creative process. This casual 30-minute conversation takes place every Thursday online at 6 p.m. via Facebook Live and YouTube Live. I would like to extend a sincere and heartfelt thanks to you all for joining us tonight. As a 21st century museum dedicated to representing the diverse and multicultural communities of South Florida, the Perez Art Museum Miami continues to strive to be a forum for open, honest, and sometimes difficult dialogue while creating understanding through the power of art. Art certainly has the power to not only inspire, but to help us reflect and see the beauty of ourselves and our communities. And I'm so happy to present tonight's artist, Terence Price II, whose work does just that. Before I introduce Terence, I would also like to acknowledge and thank the incredible team of people that work so very hard to make these programs come together online. Thank you to Anita Bram, Associate Director of Adult Programs and Audience Engagement, Claire Allen, Digital Marketing Coordinator, Alan Mueller, Membership Manager, and as always, our world-class AV team, Denise Faxis and Andrew Bird. Thank you. This program could not happen without all your crucial contributions. So let's get started. Terence Price, born in Carroll City, Florida, is a Miami-based artist who emerges from a tradition of mid-20th century street photography, capturing the world around him in evocative portraits and cinematic snapshots. He blends this history of the photographic medium with a distinctly contemporary understanding of representation, collaboration, image making, and the way media circulates in our culture. Using his camera to document the people closest to him, strangers, encounters in his daily life, and the sites he inhabits within Miami, Price locates the rich territory in which the personal takes on shared and collective meaning. His photographs offer a depiction of the intimacies of place, family, and relationships for the public record. His work has been recently featured in the Commuter Biennale and solo exhibitions at Ule Arts with Dancing in the Absence of Pain, and the Frost Museum of Art with the exhibition Terence Price II, Never Ending Gardens. His film, Summer Before Spring's End, received the Audience Choice Award at Filmgate Miami's festival. As you watch along this evening on Facebook or YouTube Live, please post questions for Terence. He will try to answer as many as possible in the Q&A portion of this evening's presentation. And remember, if you value this and other programs presented by the museum, please consider supporting us by going to pam.org/donate. So with that said, please join me in giving a warm welcome to Terence Price II.
Hello, everyone. I hope everybody is doing well out there during these times of COVID, the coronavirus. Just hoping that everybody is home and safe. And I want to say thank you to Pam for having me a part of the Local Views series. Thank you, Marie, Anita, for having me aboard on this project. And me, I'm a photographer. I do a lot of documentary work in my community here in Miami. I also have been stepping into filmmaking a little bit and mostly on the cinematography side, so I'm usually behind the camera. A lot of my work tells the story of people, everyday life in Miami. And today I'm gonna be stepping into, but in the virtual realm, to talk about two artists that had a profound influence on my work. The first artist that I'm going to be talking about is Arthur J Fleur, and his video piece, Love is the Message is Death, which was created in 2016. It was on view at PAMM in August 2018 through April 2019. And the other artist is Ebony G. Patterson, who had a beautiful exhibition at PAMM titled While the Dew is Still on the Roses in 2018. The work is a span from over 5 years of her practice. And it was on view at PAMM November 2018 through 2019. So I'm going to step into the next slide. Love is the Message is Death by Arthur J Fleur. I remember the first time when I first saw the piece. And well, before I go into that, for those that don't know who Arthur J Fleur is a video artist, cinematographer, filmmaker, also director of some really great music videos, and born in Tupelo, Mississippi, raised in Clarksville. And when I first stepped into the room and I saw this piece, this energy just came over me. And I didn't really know exactly what I was preparing myself for. And as long as I sat in that room watching the video, sorry, I'm getting a little cotton mouth. As long as I sat in that dark room with just a bright screen on multiple days, I started to see this piece start to watch me. And the feelings that I felt was just these endless possibilities. In the video, you see there's a lot of captures of some really powerful moments that underlie the African-American experience, past and present. It encompasses, It encompasses heightened beauty. There's also a lot of humor and a lot of violence. But through all that, on the flip side, is the huge achievements that you see throughout the piece. Let me go to the next slide. There's pieces in here that go before my time, before my parents' time, and before my grandparents' time. And it creates like this bridge between the past and the present. And the thing that really connects the piece, sorry, my internet is a little wobbly. What connects the piece to the future is there's a song called Ultralight Beam by Kanye West that plays over it. And I'm sorry, I'm freezing up. Sorry, y'all, I'm a little nervous. I'm trying to get my words together and gather my thoughts. As I was watching the piece, a lot of tears started to fill up in my eyes, but I stuck through it. And when I went to see the show, there was a lot of white people coming out with tears in their eyes saying that they couldn't stand the piece. They couldn't watch the piece all the way through. And when I looked at them, I really wanted to say that I am this piece in the morning when I wake up. I am this piece when I continue to go throughout my day. And I am this piece when I go to bed at night. But I realized that it's not my job to do that for them. In Arthur J. Fleur's work, he knows who the work is speaking to. So I realized that a lot of these moments are bound up in my experiences. And in the piece, it gives me so much power to continue to do what I do now in my photography and in my work. And these are some of the images here. I apologize. to everyone if I'm a little shaken up. I can't really tell like if it's better to speak in front of a crowd of people or behind the computer because I can't see anyone. All I just see is numbers going up. But in these moments of Arthur J. Fleur's piece, there's this image of Serena Williams dancing. And in that moment where she's dancing, I know that when she won that year and she started to dance, that it started a lot of controversy. But throughout the piece, you see all of these really intense moments, yet some of them are beautiful, some of them could be hard to look at. But I realized in that moment when Serena Williams was dancing that it was all of this pain and all of the joyfulness of every moment that was just let go, and right when she won that game. And I think about how that translated to my show, Dancing in the Absence of Pain. I had the pleasure to see Arthur J. Fleur talk in 2019. And I was listening to the show and he was talking about how he was in the present of something like really great. And the word that really stuck with me was absence. I kept thinking about absence and presence and how that has really like been stuck to my mind. And I started to think about how when I was working on this show, Dancing in the Absence of Pain, it started because I had lost my grandfather in these video pieces. And, oh, sorry, I went the wrong way. I started to go through all these video pieces and it was left from my grandfather to me. And it allowed me to really dig through my own personal history and connection with Miami. As I went through the pieces, I was able to see my grandparents growing up. I was able to see my family growing up, my cousins, and how everybody was having a good time and partying. And when I looked at Arthur J. Fleur's piece, it really took me to how much they had to overcome. And like looking inside the video, I see a lot of the moments where they had to refuse a lot in order to get through. And Dancing in the Absence of Pain was a piece that was created for my city, but it also showed what it was like for a Black family in Miami. And one of the videos that I had was called Take Your Time. Take Your Time was a collection of photographs that was given to me by my grandmother. And I remember sitting inside my studio and I started to scan all of these images and thinking back to how they made me feel. And once I scanned all the pictures and I put it into a video format, I ran home and I started to talk to my grandmother and ask her about each of these images. And as the images started to play on the screen, she just began talking. And she told me about every single image that was on there. So it became like kind of like a game to where it was like, well, it wasn't a game. It was more like me testing her memory to see how much she could remember just by an image, how they feel or how they smell. And I put the link here. It should be in the chat so you all can watch it. Sorry, I'm going off a little bit. Okay. Yeah, Dancing in the Absence of Pain was on view at Blue Light, which was formerly known as Art Center. Sorry, y'all, I'm having some troubles with the internet. The images that you see here were featured in Dancing in the Absence of Pain. The first image up at the top left corner is a picture of my grandfather. And the picture on the right top left corner is a picture of his hand. In early 2018, in February, I asked my grandfather if I could take a picture of him outside. And living with my grandfather, I've always been a little scared because he was a really tough man. And when I asked him if I could take this picture, he was open for it and was like, yeah. He grabbed a chair and then ran outside. And I immediately grabbed my camera and ran right behind him. And as I started to set up, he started to pose in the chair, and I caught these images of him. And after I took the pictures, I developed it, and I saw how beautiful they was, and it just hit me in that moment that documenting my community is more than just going outside and walking endlessly on the streets. It made me realize like everything that I had out there was already within the walls of my home. And I immediately started collecting all the pictures in my family. And the next month in March, my grandfather passed away. And when he passed away, before he passed away, all the video clips and VHS tapes was given to me. And I collected them, and I started to mash up all of these clips and videos to kind of go back to where he's been and how he came to where he is now. And later on that year in October, I asked my grandmother to take a similar image that I took of my grandfather in that same chair. And there she is holding the flag of my grandfather. This is also a picture of me and Arthur J Fleur that was taken by Jason Jeffers. After the talk, I thought it would be cool to add that in there since he had a huge, profound influence on my craft from dancing in the absence of pain. In 2012, the death of Trayvon Martin was one of the things that really struck me to my core in my early stages in photography. This was a kid that I didn't know personally, but my father played softball with his father. So there could have been so many chances that he could have been one of the kids that I was running around playing in the park with. And his mother lived in Carroll City, so I could have seen him numerous of times walking past me as I'm walking around with my camera taking a picture of the neighborhood. And it sprung me into action to really start documenting a lot of events that are going on. And I went to Sanford with my father in 2012 during the protest, and there was so many people there. And to me, that was the beginning of a lot of the movements that are going on now. And it also fueled me to really go out there and document every little thing that I can. These are some of the images from the protest that is currently going on. And this was at the George Floyd protest that happened about a couple of weeks ago. And we also found out about Breonna Taylor, rest in peace, Tony McDade, and now Rayshard Brooks and Toyin. And it's kind of different now going out there documenting these protests. I've been discovering that I don't have as much energy to take photos of the protests. I've been really focusing on being there with the people. And there's a few times where I'm taking pictures and I just put my camera down because I don't know, it's too live. And that separation between the glass and the subjects kind of separates me from the moment. And I realize that I have to be there with everyone, shouting and walking through the streets. And also to other photographers, it's really important to not show tattoos of people and not show their faces, because things are much different now than what they were before. This morning I woke up and I listened to a song by Mahalia Jackson called I Come to the Garden Alone. And in there she sings, I come to the garden alone while the dew is still on the roses, which leads into the next show by Ebony G. Patterson, While the Dew is Still on the Roses. Ebony G. Patterson is a Jamaican-born artist and educator known for her large tapestries made out of fabric, toys, beads, jewelry, faux flowers, and other embellishments. Her large inspired garden installations and video work is what really moved me into my next project. I saw this towards the end of the year in 2019 before I started working on my solo show at FIU called Never Ending Gardens. And here are a few images from the show. And to quote Ebony G. Patterson, I watched the talk that she did, and she was saying, beneath all the layers, beneath all the shine, beneath all the patterns, beneath all the embellishments, sits an uneasy question. The question is whether you choose to look beneath. Spend time looking before you take a picture. And seeing the flowers, I started to think about my neighborhood and thinking about my grandmother and how my grandmother isn't really considered an artist, but when I walk inside her house, the way she puts images on the wall, hodgepodge images all on the wall, different sizes, different frames, different colors of everything. I walk in, there's a picture of my graduation, picture of my cousin's graduation, picture of her graduation. And it all speaks to the level of appreciation that one must have for each other. And even I take that and put it into my own work and how I choose to go about documenting my community. And the show is really beautiful. You see the flowers, you see the glitter, and it really draws you in, but you really have to like look beyond the piece to see what everything is about. Sorry. Sorry, I got a little stuck, a little lost. And it started to make me think a lot about how I went into the process of documenting my family. And when my grandfather passed away, I was trying to think of a way to honor my family. Instead of using flowers and other objects to get that across, I started to think about how can I really translate an image to allow people to know, like, we've been in this community before, or if we were to like be wiped away through gentrification, how can I make a stand against that to allow people to know that we've existed in this space? So I started to document my family underneath the street sign. And it was a little tough for me because I'm a really quiet person. And even when it comes to my family, I can be a little shy at times. So I started to ask my mother, I started to ask my aunt and my grandmother if I could take a picture of them outside. And seeing that their reaction, it gave me a bit more confidence to go out there and to document as many family members as I possibly can. These pictures took place during my grandfather's memorial. After the memorial, everybody came over to the house and was celebrating. We had barbecues and food and drink. Everybody's dancing. And one by one, I would go in the backyard and just have a picture of you under the street sign. And they were actually a little bit nervous getting their picture taken from me. But in reality, I was the one that was like really nervous. So I would bring them outside under the street sign and I wouldn't tell them to do anything. I would just tell them to stand there and just let me do all the work. And one or two images turned into like 3 or 4. And then those images turned into like 10. And then from 10, it turned into 20. And then it went all the way up to about 50 images. And it was like this way of me really trying to show everybody like how strong the community is here in Miami, in South Florida. And I think that's what Ebony G. Patterson's show really did for me. Although you see like all the glitter and the flowers and it really pulls you in, you really have to dig in order to understand like what is really going on. And I feel like in Miami now, there's a lot of people that come here and they really get sucked into the beaches, the cars, the galleries, and they don't think about everybody else that's been living here. Gentrification is a big thing here in Miami. The other day I was driving around to 3 different jobs that I had, and each of those spaces disappeared. And in my community, there was a place called Carroll City Flea Market, which was probably one of the best flea markets here in Miami, besides right next to, probably equally one of the best, the USA Flea Market, which is now torn down as well. And once Carroll City Flea Market was removed from my community, that's when I really knew that things were changing. And when they took that out of the city, it just felt like a huge chunk of my history was taken along with it. And the memory of that is still there, but it's slowly fading away. So I can only imagine what that does to a lot of people here in the community in Miami. So through photography and through video, I try to combat that as much as I possibly can and tell the true stories of the essence of the people here in Miami. And I'll go on to the next slide that has a few more images of my family. These are mostly of my cousins in South Carolina to celebrate my grandfather's life. And this was my way to celebrate them and also to celebrate my grandfather. Sorry, I took a lot of notes so that way it can help me stay on track. And I veer off from time to time, but please bear with me. While the Dew is still on the roses gave me the inspiration to think about gardens and what that means for me. Living in Carroll City, it was named Carroll City, and then in 2002, it changed to the City of Miami Gardens. When I was younger, I didn't really understand what that meant. Like, why did it change from something that I knew for most of my life to something that I have to get used to? And the idea of gardens and what that meant for me, putting that in this title, and stating it never-ending gardens was a way to say, like, this is something that I don't want to change, but I also do want the photography to be. It came from a book by Adrienne Marie Brown called Emergent Strategies. And in there, it talked about an organization that started in Detroit where members were using the life of certain plants and flowers and using that as tactics to apply to the community and how it should grow and continue to combat gentrification and a lot of killings that are going on. And that's what inspired the gardens part. And when I saw Ebony G. Patterson show, I knew that everything wasn't too far off course with using gardens as a way to create space for people to go in and to connect, like really connect with what's there, what's really there. And the show is on display at the Frost Museum. Oh, okay. The show is on display at the Frost Museum. You can see a 3D version of it. And now we're gonna go into questions. Sorry.
Hey, Terrence.
Hey.
You don't have to rush to finish. You can do the last slides if you wanted to get through them, or we can go to questions.
This is the last slide.
Okay.
Grandfather. Yeah.
Nice. I don't want to speak over your grandfather if you had anything additional to say, but thank you so much. That was amazing, and it's such a treat to see more of your work, especially so many images of your family and community. So the first question is from Phyllis Sherman Heller, and she asked, what camera do you use? For this series, I use the Mamiya C130 medium format camera to document my grandfather and my grandmother. But right now I'm using a Canon 7D to get quick digital images, but mostly I like to shoot film a lot. So it just gives me a stronger aesthetic to me than digital. Right, yeah, more hands-on, a dark room. George Fishman also asked, in your family portraits, to me, this sign suggests monuments, markers, and crowns. Did you have anything like that in mind? I didn't, but when I began to talk to people, a lot of people kept seeing the street signs as like a point on a map. And I think it's not too far off from the idea of that, but yeah. I mean, in a way it is to honor the person that's in the photograph and the space. So it can be used as that too. I really love the works under the street signs. It's repeated, but it's still so different because each family member is different in each image. I love those. Yeah, thank you. Adrian Rose Gianta asked, not sure if I missed it, but why roses for the gardens? Roses for the gardens? Yeah, I'm not sure. That's true. I'm not sure if she's asking about in Ebony's work. Okay. Not sure I know the answer to it either. Yeah. Sorry, Adrian. We're not sure why roses. It's a good question. Let's see. It looks like Franklin Sermons asked, are there any photographers specifically that you admire? Gordon Parks is one of my favorite photographers. I have several of his books, and I look through them all the time. And I reread his autobiography from time to time, just going through different chapters. Learning about his experience and what he had to overcome has been a big inspiration to me. And
I hope to be as great, like maybe half or just like a piece, because what he had to go through to get to where he was, and it just speaks volume. And that's one of my top favorite photographers.
I think you're well on your way, in my opinion.
Thank you.
I guess I had another question for you, which is, you mentioned in the portraits you did of your family after your grandfather's memorial that you don't prompt your audience. Do you ever like stage the production of your photos or films, or are they all shot like naturally as things happen?
Most of the photos that I take are shot naturally as they happen. But for this series, I wanted it to be a little bit more intimate. And I'm not saying that it's not intimate to get pictures, like going outside and searching for them. But I kind of wanted to build my connection stronger with my family by telling them to go here or capture them in a light to make them look good. Or I really had to focus on those things. But most of the videos that I shoot with my family are kind of just out of the moment. And but yeah, for the series that I did with staging them underneath the street sign, that was probably one of the only times that I really did that a lot, where I actually staged an image. Yeah.
Right. Let's see. Mandela Isma Phillips asked, how does it feel being acknowledged by PAMM?
It feels great to be acknowledged by PAMM. I will admit that the pressure, I definitely felt it. I was a little nervous, and Mandela is a good friend of mine, and I love you, and I hope you're well and safe out there in this quarantine. And during the protests and everything, I saw you out there a couple times, and I love you, man. I'm glad you're safe.
Nice. Yes, the virtual pressure is very real. I told you at the beginning, I've already sweat through this whole shirt. It happens every time.
Yeah.
Let's see. Mariana Ramirez asked, would you consider photographing communities outside of Miami or Florida?
Hey, Mariana. Yes. Sometimes when I travel, when I get to travel, I'll always bring my camera with me and take a few pictures and stuff. But I would love to spend some time longer in Chicago and document the neighborhood. Yeah, that's one of the places that I would like to document a lot. New York used to always be on my mind, but I think that was just to be more connected to the history of photography and knowing how many great photographers came out of New York. But another place that I would like to go is Chicago. But I think Miami will always be my home, but I would like to go out there and spend a little bit of time, but keep Miami as the returning place for me to spread those images to, other neighborhoods in Miami, so that way they can see how related they are to other communities throughout America or whatever.
Right. Thank you. Let's see. Kevin Arrow asked, is there a book of Terrence's work on the horizon?
On horizon? Oh, like...
Is there a book on your horizon coming up?
No, not right now. There isn't. Okay. I think later on, maybe I will work on that. But I'm very tough on myself, and I have way too many images to go inside one book. So maybe if I had somebody to help me like narrow it down, then I think it'll be a go. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. Hint, hint, calling for book help here.
Exactly.
Let's see. Michelle Lockett asked, is there a subject you want to shoot but haven't had the chance yet?
Is there a subject that I want to shoot? I don't know. That's a tough question because I do a lot of street photography. So it's really just up to me getting up and walking miles and miles and capturing what the world has to offer for me. So, I mean, I don't know. That's tough.
Yeah. Finding the subjects or letting the subjects find you. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we have one last question from Marie. She asks, have you worked with or taught youth photography? What was that like?
I have. I taught a youth class at Overtown, Urgent, Inc. in Overtown, ICA. The ICA program was one of my favorites because we worked with 3 different locations. We worked with Northwestern High School and Edison, and also middle school kids in Overtown. And the project that I made for them was a photojournalism project where I allowed each kid to document their experience in high school and outside of high school, and then share their photos with other kids in different high schools so they can see how close they are. And those communities are like really right next to each other, but each kid could have a different experience of what they're going through. So I worked with them to allow them to see how they're not that different, and it's all love.
Nice, very nice. And then I guess that just reminded me of one last question that I had for you, which was, I think you recently created a film work for ICA that was commissioned by ICA during quarantine. Could you tell us anything about that, or where to find it?
Yeah, it's on ICA's website on their main page. It was a series of 4 videos that I started back when I was 27. I traveled up to Eatonville, which is a community that my grandmother is from, and I met up with my uncle there who has a barbershop inside his garage. And I just felt like I needed to really shed off the whole year. So I let him cut my hair, and then it started to become a tradition for me where every year I just cut my hair. And in 2 of the videos, one of the people that asked me a question, Mandela Phillips, he's also my friend and collaborator who cut my hair in 2 of those videos. And then in the last video, I turned 30 in quarantine on April 10th. And so we was all in quarantine, and I found some clippers, and I had to set it up for myself and cut my own hair. I did a horrible job, but it made for a good piece, I think. Yeah.
Made for a great film, but not a great haircut.
Yeah, not a great haircut at all.
Yeah.
Still wearing his hat.
Yeah. The hat works. Hat tricks are totally a quarantine move without all these haircuts. Thank you so much, Terrence. We can't thank you enough. Your work is amazing, and we can't wait to see more in the years to come. So thank you.
Thank you.